Welcome, friends. It's Wednesday evening again, and I'm here to share with you some thoughts along the journey. Out on the trail of life and faith, if we push ourselves too hard, if we work like there is no tomorrow, we are setting ourselves up for exhaustion. An exhaustion that involves body, mind, and spirit. Out on the trail, if we become exhausted, we are prone to make mistakes. We might miss a trail marker, or we become disoriented and lose our way and think that we've become lost in the woods, or we may stumble and fall and injure ourselves. This is the case in all of life when we are overcome by weariness and exhaustion. We are prone to make mistakes. We don't think clearly. We forget important details. Our decision-making becomes flawed. We don't perform well. We may become ill. We have accidents, and we hurt ourselves and maybe others. Weariness and exhaustion also impact us emotionally. When small children get tired, they become irritable, and so do adults. When we are exhausted, our tempers flare. We say things that later we wish we hadn't said. We do things that we later regret. We don't do the things we should have done, and we're filled with shame. We hurt the feelings of others, and we grievously wound valuable relationships. When we get emotionally exhausted, we are sometimes very difficult to live with, and those closest to us know how difficult we become. We may also become spiritually weary and exhausted. We neglect our spiritual lives. We don't tend to the needs of our souls. We don't pray, and we become disconnected not only from God but from our deepest selves. We begin to feel lonely and alone. Sometimes we feel as if no one understands us, and sometimes we are perplexed because we realize we don't understand ourselves. Weariness and exhaustion have physical, emotional, and spiritual dimensions. There comes a time when we need to rest. And so our word for this week that is appearing on your screen now is the word rest. Now I expect that many of you who are watching and know me relatively well are thinking, he's the last person on this planet to be talking to anyone about rest and resting. I know. I can peg myself, and you can too, as a workaholic. I know I've been accused of trying to cram 2 lives into one. These are things I know about myself. I know about them, and because I know about them, I may also know a thing or two about rest. By personal experience, I'm intimately aware with the effects of weariness and exhaustion. I know what it can do to me and to you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I don't mind confessing to you that I'm not very good at resting my body. Yet, I take very seriously my spiritual self. I wake up every morning early and begin tending my soul first thing. The spiritual care is sometimes my highest priority, and I rest by reading scriptures devotionally, by praying and reading prayers, by reading inspiring books, and by meditating. I also try to disengage emotionally. I need to be rested emotionally. I need to be rested and calm, for quite often I am dealing with emotionally charged people, or I find myself in emotionally charged situations where I cannot let my emotions run away from me or captivate me, because I must be, as much as possible, a flowing stream of calm in that situation. I rest emotionally by pulling away, getting alone, by welcoming mundane distractions, by being with friends who allow me to be myself, however I might be in that moment, without having any expectations of who I should be or what I should say or what I should do. Sometimes, honestly, most of the time, I don't rest enough physically. I don't need a lot of sleep. Maybe that's true, or maybe I've just denied myself sleep for so long that I think I don't need it. Probably a combination of both. I may not sleep a lot of hours, but I do find ways to rest physically. And oddly, sometimes I rest physically by being physical, by exercising or taking a walk. There are times when physically I feel worn out almost completely. But then I can take my dogs for a 20-minute walk and return refreshed, as if I've gotten a second wind. For me, and I suspect for you, rest comes in various forms. We need to be restored physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Sometimes by resting, sometimes by being active, sometimes by helping others, sometimes by spending time with friends. Maybe there are times when we need to go on a spiritual retreat. I often find rest while reading a good book or letting a novel carry me away with my imagination. I have friends who have dealt with the weariness and exhaustion of grief and loneliness and emotional distress by exploring art, painting, sculpting, throwing pots, blowing glass, taking photos. They can work half the night, be physically exhausted, but emotionally and spiritually so much more alive than when the evening began. They become emotionally and spiritually restored through their endeavors. I have friends who restore their jagged emotions and restless spirits by taking pilgrimages that pilgrims have traveled over time, or by choosing to go on long hikes. I know people who are refreshed physically, emotionally, and spiritually by working in a soup kitchen, by being a host in a homeless shelter, by mentoring boys and girls through various service organizations, by sharing their lives intimately and things they enjoy and gifts they have with small groups of people. Sometimes it seems to me we often think of weariness and exhaustion as only physical, and all that we need is a little more sleep or rest. But maybe we are ignoring the emotional and spiritual dimensions of weariness and exhaustion. And these can only be addressed by choosing to do other things, engaging in other endeavors. You may recall that Jesus' disciples left him by the well while they went into town to get some food. While Jesus was waiting there, a woman came, and he engaged in a very meaningful conversation with her. When his disciples returned, they offered him food, but he refused. And he said to them, "I have food that you are unaware of." You see, in some way, that engagement with that woman restored Jesus physically to the point that he was no longer hungry. The signs of weariness and exhaustion are hard to miss. We may try to deny them, but they are there. Other people see them, and when we're honest with ourselves, we are able to recognize them. And when weariness and exhaustion come, we need to rest in whatever ways that we are refreshed and restored. Our need to be for rest and be restored is the reason I chose these verses that are now appearing on your screen to guide our thoughts and prayers this evening. You'll be familiar with these words. I've selected them out of the 23rd Psalm, which may be the most familiar psalm to the most people. But here, read them with me. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. So, here we are tonight with a time to think about resting from weariness, exhaustion, and the ways we might refresh and restore our spirits. So may these thoughts guide us tonight and these next moments we share together. When you feel exhausted, is it primarily a weariness of body, mind, or spirit? How do you rest when you are physically exhausted? How do you rest your body when sleep won't come? What do you do to refresh your spirit when you are emotionally weary? How do you silence the thoughts, anxieties, and fears that demand your constant attention? Have you experienced a spiritual weariness or exhaustion? What did you do to recover? How did you refresh your soul? Rest from our weariness may come in several ways. Have you discovered how to renew yourself through exercise or meditation or art or writing or another creative endeavor? Is there a physical place that you go to restore body, mind, or spirit? To the mountains or to the sea? To a church or retreat center? To a special room or designated place in your home? When you are weary and life has you down, are there friends whose very presence renews, restores, and help you recover your balance and your sense of well-being? And now, a word of wisdom for the journey. There is a time to rest, and we must rest, body, mind, and soul. Hopefully, we rest before exhaustion crushes us. So as we've traveled along this way together, we've picked up lots of words to carry with us on this long journey. From grace and gratitude, now tonight to rest. Perhaps this is a good time to rest this time as fall approaches. Time to rest, time to move a little slower, time to take in the emerging beauty all around us as the leaves begin to turn. Time to let our bodies slow down as we are embraced by the cooler weather. Time to sit back and reflecting on where we've been and where we want to go. A time for rest that restores and refreshes us physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So, until we meet again on the trail, may the peace of Christ go with you.